The last recursive example we're going to look at is the Tower of Hanoi. And you may or may not be familiar with this, but this is a game where you have three stands. This is stand, we'll say L for left, center, and right. And what this game is you want to get all the disc from stand L all the way over to stand R. And there are a couple of rules. You can only move one disc at a time. And a larger disc cannot sit on a smaller disc, right? So we have two rules here. So what we want to do is get 1, 2, 3, 4 in this order all the way over to 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. So we quite literally want to replicate it 2, 3, and then 4, right? So we want right to eventually become left. So for us to do this, we can start over here and we can say that this is block N, right? And then we also have, so this is left, center, and right. So these are always going to be N minus 1, because once we get this N over here, now the block above it becomes N. So step 1 for us is going to be get these three blocks right here into the center, right? Because this is a helper stand for us. So we want to get these three blocks to the center. And now when we have those three blocks in the center, we're going to take our N and plop it over here. And that's always going to be step 2. Take this N block and bring it over here, because now that is our biggest block and we now have it over here. And so now that we have these three blocks over here from our first step, we now have to get all of the N minus 1 blocks over here, and that is step 3. So what you're seeing is a little bit of a pattern of N minus 1, this will count as 1, and then N minus 1 again, right? So what our function is going to try to do is count how many steps it takes to get these blocks from the left to the right. Well, so we can have our function, and we see that we have N minus 1 steps. Okay, so now we can do our recursive call of the function of N minus 1, and then we know we always have one for sure step right here at step 2, because this N block is going to go all the way over to the right. And then we also see that we have N minus 1 from the center. So we can say Fn of N minus 1 from here. And simply put, this right here is going from left to center. This right here is step 2. And then this right here is going from center to the right, right? So step 3. So step 3, step 2, and step 1. So these two calls are going to be our recursive function calls. So now we have a general idea of how this needs to look, and we can implement this recursively using the function return value that we have established right here. So if we come over and I created a function called TOH for Tower of Hanoi, we're going to have a number, and this is going to be how many blocks we contain. And then we're going to return an integer of type I32 because we want to see how many steps it took to get from the left stand all the way to the right. So our base case is if n is equal to 0, then we want to return 0 because there is nothing for us to do. Otherwise, we're going to return that formula that we found where it is n minus 1 for step 1 plus 1 for step 2 and then n minus 1 again for step 3. And now we can come down here and we can print out a couple of Tower of Hanoi inputs for us. So again, we want to test out 0, and we expect 0 to be returned. We'll test out 1, and we expect 1 to be returned. We'll test out 2, and we would expect 2 to be returned. And then we'll test out 3 and see what gets returned there. And then lastly, we'll also test out 4. And we see we have 0, 1, 3, 7, and 15. So we can actually evaluate blocks 2 and 3 pretty easily ourselves. So let's go ahead and do that. That way we can validate our results and make sure that our function is working correctly. So if we come down here, and we will say, for this case, our test n is equal to 2. We have 1, 2, 3. So we have 1, 2. So we're going to move this block here to right there. So that is 1. So now we can remove that block because it is here. So let's just label them to keep them simple. A and B. So now we're going to move A over here, and that's another move, and then we will move B on top of it. So our output of 3 for n equals 2 is correct. And now if we do test n equals 3, we will do the same thing where we go A, B, C, have our blocks here. So we will move C all the way over, and we will move B all the way over, and then we will take C and put it back on top of B. So we can get rid of that, and we can get rid of that, and now we can move A all the way over. So we can get rid of A here, and now we have C here, which means that we can remove C from here. We can now put B here, and we can now put C here, and we successfully moved it over. And that was 7 moves, just like our program outputted. So we can see that we do have a correctly functioning Tower of Hanoi recursive function. So that concludes all of the recursive examples that I'm going to show you. If you have any questions regarding recursion, please ask them in the Q&A section, and I will respond to you very quickly to provide you with clarification as to what your question might entail.